When you ask yourself, am I too late to start something new? Here's what you're really asking. Do I still matter? Will anyone care? Did I already miss my chance? And the longer you wait for those answers, the more you convince yourself it really is too late. I'm Dee Dee Sung, and this is Follow Your Lighthouse, where we navigate midlife with clarity, courage, with purpose and grace. And I'm going to show you what's really keeping you stuck and what to do instead. So those three questions, they're about worth. They're about relevance, about whether what you want is still possible. And here's the thing. The longer you sit with those questions, the more you convince yourself it's too late. And not because it's true, but because sitting with them makes it feel that way. And here's what's really happening. That question, am I too late? It isn't helping you decide whether to start. It's preventing you from trying. And I know this because I did exactly the same thing. I started Follow Your Lighthouse at the age of 67. I'd been asking myself those same three questions for years. Am I too old to be starting this? Will people dismiss me because of my age? Did I wait too long? And on top of that, there was so much I didn't know about YouTube. The scripts, the recording, the editing, all of it. And I put off launching this channel because it felt way too overwhelming. And quite frankly, staying where I was felt much safer. If I didn't try, I wouldn't have to risk failing. I wouldn't have to risk looking foolish. I could keep telling myself, maybe someday. You see, I had tried something like this before. I had launched a passion project decades earlier, and it really did not work out the way I had hoped. And that disappointment stayed with me for a very long time, and so did the fear of looking foolish again. So I spent years dreaming about Follow Your Lighthouse without ever acting on it. But here's what I realized in my 60s. Maybe someday was just another way of saying probably never. And living with that, well, it weighed heavier than the risk of failing again. So I made a choice. I chose to start before I felt ready, before I had it figured out, before it was perfect. And I finally created Follow Your Lighthouse because I had waited long enough. And the truth? I wasn't too late. I just had to give myself permission to start. Now, if what I'm sharing with you is resonating, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love you to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Because next week, we're talking about what happens when your old identity no longer fits and how to step into the next version of yourself. And if you're thinking, okay, but where do I actually start? How do I start? I'm creating something to help with that. A free 72-hour compass reset. Over 3 days, you'll get short video guides, reflection prompts, and a simple one-page plan designed to give you clarity without overwhelm. And in 3 days, you'll have your next step mapped out and the confidence to take it. Check the pinned comment below to join the wait list. Now, when I say I gave myself permission to start at 67, I am not the only one. A friend of mine, in her early 60s, decades in senior management, couldn't get hired anymore. They kept saying she was overqualified, code for too old. So she took everything she knew and started her own business. Now, it took a lot of hard work, and happy to say she's well on her way, because the same experience that made her too old for corporate became the foundation of her new business. And she is not alone. Women in their 50s, 60s, and beyond are starting businesses, going back to school, returning to creative work they set aside years ago. After decades of putting others first, they're building lives that finally feel like their own. And here's what I learned. Starting something new does not mean starting over. It means returning to something you set aside, making room for what's been waiting. So you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from everything you have already lived. Mary Oliver once asked, "What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" And I'm asking you the same thing. Not someday, right now. Because contrary to what society tells us, in this season of life, your life is still unfolding and you get to choose what that looks like. But here's what often gets in the way. Believing it's too late can feel safer. It lets you stay comfortable, protects you from taking a risk, from being seen. But here's the cost. Your life doesn't expand to make room for what you want. Think about this. When you tell yourself, it's too late, is it because it's actually true, or does trying just feel too risky? Just asking yourself that one question is the first step. And here's what we don't talk enough about: the cost of not starting. The creativity that stays buried, the ideas that never get explored, the possibilities that you walk away from, the part of you that wonders, what if? For me, if I had waited another year until I felt ready to begin Follow Your Lighthouse, I would have missed connecting with women who understand what this season of life feels like. I would have missed the conversations that remind me why I started this channel. And I would have missed feeling more like myself than I had in years. That would have been the real loss. Not the views, not the metrics, not the subscribers, but the connection and the meaning. And if you're asking this question now, that is no accident, because it shows up in midlife when what you want is finally starting to matter more than what everyone else expects of you. Your roles shift. You're no longer defined by what others need from you. And suddenly there's space to ask yourself, what do I actually want now? Does this life in its current version still fit? And the uncertainty you may be feeling, well, that's actually a good sign. It's evidence you're ready for what's next. You might not feel ready, but here's the truth. You are not the same woman you were in your 30s. You've stretched in ways you never imagined. You have capacity now that you didn't have then. For me, that means I don't second guess myself as much in my 60s the way I would have at 40. I trust myself now, and I don't wait for permission anymore. But here's what we're constantly told in midlife. The world says we are past our prime. But the reality, you are more resourced, more aware, and more prepared now than you've ever been. So you are not too late. You are ready for your second act. So what's holding you back? Most of your hesitation isn't based in reality. It comes from conditioning. We have absorbed messages without anyone saying them to us directly about women and aging and relevance, about whose voices matter, who gets celebrated and who gets dismissed. And that voice that says, maybe it's too late, that's not your voice. That's what you've been taught to believe. And for me, it sounded like this. Keep your dreams as dreams. In midlife, be responsible. Stay predictable. Stay quiet about what you really want. And I listened to that voice for years. And what I didn't realize was the cost. It dimmed everything. My joy, my passion, my excitement. I started believing, without even saying it out loud, that I had missed my window, until I recognized that belief for what it was, conditioning, not truth. Once I saw that, the question became simple. How do you actually start? You don't begin with the biggest dream, you begin with one small step. Maybe it's looking into a class you've been wanting to take, or spending 20 minutes this week exploring something you're curious about. The step doesn't have to be impressive, it just has to be meaningful to you. And honestly, this went against everything in me. I wanted to wait until things were perfect to begin. My first videos weren't as polished as they could be, but they were good enough. And your beginnings can be good enough as well. And if it doesn't work the way you had hoped, you will have tried. And that's infinitely better than living with the what if. So, what's the smallest next step available to you right now? Not the most perfect, but the one you'll actually take action on. Start there. Because here's what's at stake. If you never start, nothing changes. Life stays predictable, smaller than it could be. But when you take that step, even a small one, your world expands in ways you cannot predict. For me, some days are really long with a full to-do list. But I have the energy because I'm building what deeply matters to me. Women message me saying, "This is exactly the conversation I've been having with myself. Thank you for putting it into words." But here's what surprised me the most. The fun, the learning about myself, the pride I feel, and finally, trusting that I know the way. And that's not coincidence. That's alignment. So no, you are not too late. You are right on time for the life that's ready to expand beyond what you've already built. Because midlife isn't about replacing what you've created. It's about adding to it in ways that feel true to you. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. You've already earned the right to trust yourself through everything you've lived. And what matters most now is trust. Trusting yourself to follow your lighthouse. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. What part hit home? And what topic could I cover for you next? Tell me in the comments, because your story and your questions might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Next week, we're talking about what to do when your old identity stops fitting and how to step into what's next. Until then, take care, and I will see you soon.